Hi everyone, welcome to IMS's video on how to crack CMAT. Now, I'm sure you finished your whole exam season, starting from NMAT, CAT, IFT, SNAP and ZAT also a couple of days back. Most of the exams are over. What is left is now CMAT for the All India students, and for the Maharashtra students there is CMAT as well as CET still left. So let's understand what do you require to crack CMAT, how is CMAT different from other exams and so on. First, let's understand some basics about CMAT. Last year, approximately 70,000 students wrote CMAT. Earlier, CMAT was always conducted by AICTE, but from last year onwards, it has been now conducted by NTA. And what has changed with that? Has the exam pattern changed? Did it change last year compared to so many years since when CMAT started? Is there any change in the exam pattern or the difficulty level and so on? Well, before we go on to that, let's understand why do you need to write CMAT? Why is CMAT such an important exam? There are a lot of colleges all over the country which accept the CMAT scores. We've listed a few prominent ones for you with their salary packages and so on. So it helps you understand what are you actually writing the CMAT for. You can also note that we haven't included colleges like JBIMS, Sydenham and so on because these they take the CMAT score but only for a particular category of students only, not for the Maharashtra students, but for the OMS category as it is called. So now, when we talk about the institutes, obviously the premier ones being National Institute of Bank Management, then there is Praxis Institute of Business School, Kolkata, Goa Institute of Management and so on. There are many such prominent colleges which accept the CMAT scores. Now, let's understand the pattern and the importance of CMAT. Now, as I was talking to you, since the test is now conducted by NTA, what has changed? First thing, the change which is there is compared to 2018, 2019 was a much easier test. So that you can see from the cutoffs. Now, or the percentiles at 99 percentile. So 2018, 99 percentile was at a 260 score. In 2019, same thing, the 99 percentile is now at a score of 310. 260 to 310 is 50 marks extra. 50 marks is more than 12 questions, right? So hence, that has definitely changed that the test became easier last year. Well, will the test remain easier this year or will it become slightly more difficult? Nobody can say that. So I would suggest that you prepare accordingly. Try, if you're looking at a 99 percentile, try and score anywhere between 280 to 320. That should be your target. Obviously, if you're looking at colleges like JB and all, you'll have to score even 99.9-ish something, where scores of 320 and 330 only will make it safe. Let's have a look at the exam structure now. Now, CMAT obviously is an online test. Most of the tests this year have been online now. It is a very, very standard pattern. Nothing has changed by NTA coming in. Even AICTE, the pattern remained the same. It is a 3-hour paper, 180 minutes, divided over 4 sections. Each section having 25 questions. Let's have a look at the sections. The first section is language comprehension. 25 questions, 100 marks. That means each question is 4 marks. Next one, QA and DI. Quantitative aptitude, data interpretation. Again 25 questions, 100 marks. Third one is logical reasoning. 25 questions, 100 marks. And last and the most important one according to me is GK or general awareness. 25 questions, 100 marks. So what you notice over here is GK has equal importance as quant or any other test, and hence I've always noticed that CMAT is an exam which is slightly easier for those students who are good at GK. So if say somebody has been preparing for UPSC or some other exams like that, or a bank exam where they've done a lot of GK preparation, hence such students always benefit in this exam a lot more. Also, when I talk about the difficulty level, the difficulty level is very, very, very basic, I would say. Compared to all the other exams which you've written this year, CAT, NMAT, ZAT or whatever, the difficulty level is very basic. So if I look at any of the 3 sections, say logical reasoning, quant or verbal, you will notice that, you really don't need to go into the depth of any topic. You can do the topic, I would say, as I would have not said that for CAT ever, but you can do the topic superficially. So you could just go through your concepts in quant really well, practice a little bit of speed maths, practice your calculations well, and you should be able to crack at least 18 to 20 questions comfortably. Yes, there would be a couple of questions which can be slightly difficult. So I remember in a particular year, they asking a question on parabola, where most of the common students had not even heard what parabola was. So hence obviously only science students had that slight advantage or whatever. But that's only 1 or 2 questions. You can always leave those questions and still have a good 20 attempts in quant comfortably. Now, so when I look at this, same thing goes for verbal, even same thing goes for logical reasoning. The questions are never asked in too much depth. They don't, the questions are not very difficult. Questions are always on very, very basic concepts. The exam structure we know is that every question carries positive 4 marks. There is negative marking, very, very important. There is negative marking and a -1 per question, which will always make you that much more careful. You have to be more careful. Also understand it's a test where the scores are very high and hence students want to attempt more questions. But don't get into the trap of attempting so many questions that you have a lot of negatives also. Now, let's talk about each section and let's start with the language comprehension section. Now, this section has 4 sets of RCs, that is 4 reading comprehension sets. And these, I would say, are pretty straightforward, very easy to read RCs, not very difficult. If you've been preparing for the other exams, I would say you don't have to specifically prepare anything else over here. So these for RCs, I would not put at any specific preparation if you have been preparing for the other exams. Obviously, there are some inference-based questions, but if you've written XAT where all the questions were inference-based, then there is definitely not a big problem. Now, vocab is an important part of this. Vocab can be asked in the form of antonyms, synonyms, or in other forms like fill in the blanks, spelling sometimes. So, vocab can be a very, very integral part of CMAT preparation. So, in fact, when we talk about the preparation required, vocab will be one very, very important part of that. Other things which are asked are parajumbles. Now, a couple of years back, we had seen 1 or 2 questions on FIJ, that is fact, inference, judgment. Now, this is normally a very difficult topic, Hence, we would recommend you to go through this topic a little bit in detail, carefully, so that you don't miss out those 2 questions or something like that. And same way, idioms, fill in the blanks, etc. are also tested. Now, this is what the pattern of CMAT is. They test you on literally everything. So, starting with RC, starting with a little bit grammar, vocab, parajumbles, FIJs, 1 or 2 questions on critical reasoning, everything is tested. Again, maybe not very difficult, but definitely everything is tested. And that's what CMAT is all about. Now, let's go to the next part, logical reasoning. Now, why is logical reasoning over here a slightly more, I would say, difficult section to handle? Because there is not a single question over here which is asked in the form of a set. And students are so used to solving logical reasoning for at least 4 questions. So when you look at a set, say a question with 3 or 4 instructions, when you try to spend time on that, you feel, okay, I'm going to be able to answer 3 or 4 questions. But here, that's a problem. Because everything is a single question, you tend to spend a lot more time reaching the answer. So here, use of options very carefully or reading the conditions very carefully. Maybe there are 4 conditions given, but out of that 2 are not even needed. Only 2 conditions would be enough for you to arrive to the answer. So hence, reading those conditions very carefully and all becomes very, very important. While topics, again, the whole area is tested. So there will be definitely questions on arrangement, right? Arrangement will always, that is linear arrangement, circular arrangement, matrix arrangement, all of them will be tested. Other topics like family tree, that is blood relation, puzzles, coding, decoding, series, direction sense, syllogs is tested in logical reasoning. Sometimes even a question on selection criteria is asked. So please be sure that you've covered the whole area. You've not missed out anything. Again, you do not expect any difficult questions like the ones which you see at CAT or that. So you don't expect those level questions, but otherwise you expect questions from all areas. I even remember seeing questions on clocks and calendars over here. So everything is tested from logical reasoning. I would cover the whole area and practice each and every topic well. Let's move on to the third section, that is the QA and DI section. Now again over here also the same thing. In DI also, there are only 3 or 4 questions from DI maximum, but they are all single questions. Now, which is a very surprise. You never have seen in any other test single questions in DI. Mostly we see a set. Now again over here, so be careful. Even though they are very simple, straightforward questions, but see that you do not waste too much time. As far as quant is concerned, the major weightage is on arithmetic, as I've been talking about in all my videos. That arithmetic has the major weightage in all the tests. So here also nothing is changed. Major weightage is on arithmetic. There will be definitely 2 or 3 questions on geometry, something from algebra, and a few questions on PNC, modern maths, series, and so on also. But again, all of pretty decent difficulty level, nothing really very difficult. So don't get into the depth of questions. Practicing say a level LOD 1, LOD 2 from any material which you're looking at should be good enough. Don't go to the LOD 3 levels. Don't practice questions which you've been practicing for CAT or ZAT, anything like that. So students who've been, as I told earlier also, students who've been preparing for say the bank exams and all, always have a slight advantage because they're used to these easier questions and also hence are, they're ready to work on their speed. So the students who are moving on from CAT and say have not written a test like NMAT, when you're writing CMAT, please start thinking about speed also. You really need to work on your speed in quant, because there can be some questions which can be slightly calculation intensive. You cannot waste your time too much over here. Okay, so that was all about the 3 sections and all. Now let's talk about the kind of attempts which I think you should have in all the 3 sections. Now if you're looking at a college like JB or something, as we said, you should be targeting a score of anywhere between close to 320. Now 320 is what? We have need around 80 correct answers, right? So even if I have to have 80 correct answers, I will need 85 attempts. Now GK, you can always assume that there will be 5 or 7 questions which you don't know, which means you'll have to reach to around at least 22 questions attempted in each of the sections earlier, that is in verbal, in logical reasoning and in quant. But like if you're targeting a 98 or 99 percentile, which could happen at a 280 or 300, you could have 17-18 attempts in each of the sections. So what I have noticed in this exam is that 20 questions or 22 questions are very straightforward. Everybody should be able to tackle those 22 questions. It's always those last 3 or 4 questions which can be the game changer. So are you there? Have you prepared for those type of questions, and hence are you ready, or have you been able to identify which was the 1 or 2 difficult questions and leave them quickly so you could spend more time on the easier ones? That's what I would say. Let's move on to the last and the most important section in the CMAT test, that is GK. Now, as I mentioned that, a 14 to 16 attempts in GK should be really good enough. But again, for the ones who are really good with GK, this can be your make or break section. Let's talk about GK. Now, GK has a mixture of static as well as current affairs. Till last year, there was always more emphasis on static GK and less current affairs. But last year that changed a little bit. Last year I would say there was an equal mix of static and current affairs, but you could always consider a little bit more on static GK for CMAT. Now, how do you concentrate on GK? What do you prepare? When we say static GK, the whole universe is open. There can be so many things which can be asked. Well, but CMAT has made it slightly easier for you. They have always got 3 or 4 questions on arts and culture. So if you prepare something around those lines, read up a little bit material on that, that should really help you. 2 or 3 questions on sports, especially sports terms and all. So I remember last year or last year there was a question, in which sport is something like a double fault happens. So if you've been following sports even a little bit, double fault happens in tennis. So that is a very simple, straightforward GK question. Well, also CMAT started pictorial GK. So what is pictorial GK? They could give you a picture, they could ask you who's that person, or it could be the name of a CEO it could be a CEO and you would have to name the company or something like that. So always understand that pictorial GK can also be, if you've been reading up regularly, then pictorial GK should also not be very difficult. As far as current affairs is concerned, last 3 to 6 months GK or current affairs should be very important for that. So obviously the areas covered can be Indian events as well as international events or anything else. Now, what would I suggest you do before, from say now to your CMAT, that is you have roughly around 20 days in hand? What do? I would suggest that you practice vocab for 30 minutes every day. That should be your standard purpose, 30 minutes, because vocab questions always are straightforward questions. You either know them or you don't know them. There is no in between this. And what happens in a test where there is negative marking, guessing can be really bad. So if you've not narrowed down say to 2 options, then guessing is really bad. So if you still narrow down to 2 options, you could still take a guess. But otherwise, learning vocab is very important. So 50 words, 50 to 60 words per day is what you could plan to learn for the new words every day for the next 20 days. Revise quant formula and speed maths. Now, for the IMS students, what I would suggest is that you could simply just go through the concept videos once. With the concept videos, we have a lot of examples. Even if you do that much, the concept videos and the examples, I think that you would really do well. Don't concentrate on too difficult topics like functions, graphs and all. You would not see too much of that area, right? I'm sure a lot of commerce students breathe easy on that. Practice GK every single day. From here onwards, if you have not been studying GK regularly, I would say spend even close to 1 hour doing GK every day. GK will be your make or break section. See, I have noticed that over the 3 sections, the remaining 3 sections except GK, most of the students get very similar scores. If I don't count the GK scores, most of the students who are at least good enough get very similar scores. That means, say, everybody's got around 18 questions correct in the 3 sections, say 50 to 55 questions correct in the 3 sections. But the make or break part is GK always. Practice the unique questions of CMAT, any question type which you can see through the last couple of your CMAT papers. Definitely, as usual, take enough mocks so that you're ready for the test and you are ready for the speed at which you need to solve questions. So your 3 hours, we know that GK will never take more than 15 minutes, right? So the 165 minutes, the remaining 165 minutes, you can easily distribute equally between the 3 sections, unless you have a favorite section where you really want to spend extra time or give less time to that. That's your choice. So understand that these are the things you need to do definitely from the next 20 days from here to D-Day for CMAT. Well, as usual, if you have any more queries, you can put it in the comment section. I'll be happy to try and answer them. And best of luck for the exam.